is real. Listen.
Hi, I'm Traci.
And I'm Kathy.
And this is Curious Explorers. Hey, Kath.
Hey, Trace.
So good to see
How are ya?
you.
I know, it's good to see you.
I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time.
It does feel like that. And it's weird because I feel like I haven't seen you in person in a long time, but it hasn't been
It hasn't been that
that
long.
long, but it feels like it's been a long time. A lot. Well, let's just say a lot has happened.
Oh my God. And I finally got the Prudence Worth episode up. So people can check that out. But
Awesome.
it's funny because the first thing we talk about is how freezing cold it was. And it's
Yeah.
actually cold today, but not like that. It's been a little bit of time.
No, it's turned. You can definitely feel that the season has changed.
It's like cold spring. The spring,
Yes.
that spring kind of overly cold. But
Yes.
anyway, so good to see you. And I was thinking tonight, maybe it's a bit of a catch-up night, a little bit of a paranormal smorgasbord, as they say.
Sure. A little bit, something for everybody.
Something for everybody. So I don't even remember who I heard mention this book. Maybe I'll start here. I'm a little all over the place, but I started reading this book. It's like Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. Because, a page turner. But it's actually a really good book, even though it's not like what most people would think of. But somebody mentioned it. I ordered a copy. It's out of print. So I'm still early in the book, but it's mostly like Soviet psychic stuff from telepathy on. And I know that,
Right.
we should get to telepathy in a little bit, or maybe we could start there. I had a whole bunch of stuff bookmarked. As I get through it in more detail, I think we'll have more to talk about on the show. But, I was thinking that right now what's super current is the telepathy tapes and Diane Hennessy
Right.
Powell's work, which I think is really fascinating. I think the episodes are really well done. And I heard her on somebody else's podcast talking about her work. And I was like, I love that she's talking about all of this history and all of this research that really predates what she's doing. What she's doing is amazing and wonderful and important. But I think a lot of people don't realize how much work there's been, not only in the US, but elsewhere on telepathy and other types of psi phenomena.
Well, I also think a lot of people don't realize that there is psi phenomena, right? It's funny because you had told me to watch something. You told us all to watch something a couple of weeks ago, and yes, get on it. And it was the Don and Becky.
Oh
YouTube
yes!
Stuff,
oh my God! You
right?
finally watched it?
I did. I watched it, and then I
Unsolved
watched,
Mysteries.
I watched Unsolved. I do have to say, you got me into. I fell into an Unsolved Mysteries hole because I ended up spending the whole afternoon then binging it. It was very interesting. What was his name? Dave Murrah? He was the parapsychologist, or the gentleman who was a skeptic who believes in the phenomena, just not in every story. And you're right, Barry Fitzgerald is much more skeptical in that episode. And honestly, Barry is a terrific guy. Barry's a really well-respected paranormal investigator and takes the subject very seriously. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is it kind of moved me into watching something else that the Murrah gentleman was doing, where he was explaining an investigation that he'd been on, and he made the distinction where he said I was at this thing, and Don was having these experiences, and I was paying attention to them, and this was the phenomena that was coming up, and it was essentially that a demon was saying to Don that he wanted his power. And he said, I was uncomfortable because we were moving out of the paranormal and into the supernatural. And I thought, oh, I actually thought it was a great distinction.
Everybody's got a line.
Well, but here's the thing. We all have these words, but we define them differently.
Yes.
And, I think it's very important, and I'm grateful for you for your defining these things as psi, as opposed to just strictly paranormal, because a lot of people look at paranormal and they think, well, it's magic. It's all of these things. But, telepathy has been There's been an enormous amount of research that's gone into telepathy. There's been an enormous amount of research that's gone into different psi abilities and events and things like that that absolutely fall into an empirical area where a lot of other paranormal is still sitting on the outside. And I think it's a great example of how something can start out as paranormal and then segue in to the known. Um, and I think this is this is one of those kind of case in points.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you were talking, I don't know if you could see the thought balloons. Depends on your psi ability. Some people can.
Yeah, I did.
It's
I
very hard
still
to
have a
hide them
couple.
from some
Yes,
people.
I did. I saw
It's
those.
amazing. I have to really guard myself.
Yeah, they're just popping around.
But I know there are people who there's no snarky or malicious intention when they'll say, well, there's no data. It's that they really honestly have no idea and haven't looked into it.
Right.
And then there's the other camp that's like, well, it's, all BS or there's no data. And it's just because that's like, again, it's almost like a religious stance. But again, I know I've said it before. I like if I had a psi crush, it would be on Dean Radin, who would not describe himself as this great psychic. I mean, I think
By the way, everybody, this is the third
I
time
know I
she's
mention him
mentioned
all the time. Like I could probably
today.
just
The third
die
time
today
today.
after having Dean Radin on this show.
Yeah.
But he's brilliant and he's so funny naturally without trying to be, but he's an unbelievable researcher and he's
Right.
able to talk about the research in a way that anyone can get, because I feel like a grapefruit on shoulders when I listen to him talk because he's just extraordinarily bright and clever, but he's able to make even I can understand what he's saying, and I think your average
Yeah.
person could too.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a ton out there, and it's interesting because like I'm off on kind of a tangent, but that's kind of what we do here. But whenever I do my every other week training with Lynn Buchanan, he talks about, and all the people in the remote viewing community, just kind of like an understood or accepted thing that this stuff's been going on for forever. This stuff has been researched at universities and governments,
Right.
including our own. It's been going on for forever, like serious
And
stuff.
there is data.
It, it, it's
Just because you don't
yeah.
know about the data doesn't mean that the data isn't there. And
We don't need to prove it, and it's actually just a
it's
thing.
it's
Like you don't have
and
to prove your sense of
it's
smell either.
exactly, it's empirically proven to exist. You can even go back to the work, like we've talked about the Ryan Institute in the past, and it's colloquially proven to exist. You can absolutely, most people can absolutely point to a time in their lives where they have had some kind of telepathic experience, and they'll chalk it up to different things, but they still know they've had it. And
100%.
just because that is not repeatable to you does not mean that these things have not been tested in repeatable tests, because other people do it differently than you do. Other people are better at it than you are, because it's not the norm. But
Although kind of is.
it could be, right?
Right.
And when people say, well, there's no scientific proof, it's like, well, my instinct is to be like, shut up. Yes, it is.
It's
What are you
like
talking about? Okay, listen. Or when someone says to me, like, you guys can probably hear how amusing I find this, but when someone says to me something like, well, show me the proof, it's like, okay, how would you like it? Do you want it in scholarship? Do you want it in published works? What are you looking for? Because you can see the statistical stuff. You can see all of this stuff.
So my fantasy that I've had every time somebody's really obnoxious, because I'm not an evangelist. I feel like everybody's entitled to their thoughts and feelings, but if you're going to be again like overkill and obnoxious about it, I kind of and not read anything. I feel
Well,
like
that's it.
yeah. Then I feel
Right,
like
that's it.
I kind of scary for them, not me, is that there should be some like most haunted house, and they should have to spend a week in it.
Well, you know what it is for
And
me?
let's
It's
see,
that
maybe they won't perceive anything. I don't know.
what it is for me is if you're going to demand evidence, okay, and then someone says, "Well, okay, here's the evidence. Here's the scholarships that's been done on it. Here's the," and you're not going to accept that, right? You're not going to accept it. You're not going to read it. You're not going to do it. Then then your argument is based on belief, and your argument is based
Absolutely.
on faith, because you're unwilling to look at the evidence. The other thing is that you're not most people would not be
Kathy, did you
qualified.
just see that?
Yeah. What?
Something I don't if it's dust, it had high velocity and very
Was it
notable it went
over here?
straight across the front of your screen. So we'll have to take a look.
In my
11:55 it is right now and into our
so f-
recording. Did you catch that? So, if you're watching the episode on YouTube, you may very well have noticed a small, somewhat circular, light colored, dense object shooting from right to left across the lower third of Kathy's screen. But I'm going to play the clip 2 more times so you can get a better look. And of course, if you're listening to the audio only version of this podcast on one of your favorite streaming apps, you can certainly imagine what we're describing in your mind until you get a chance to head on over to YouTube and check out the clip. But either way, please leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. We're just as curious as you are.
the other thing is that you're not most people would not be
Kathy, did you
qualified.
just see that?
Yeah. What? The other thing is that you're not most people would not be
Kathy, did you
qualified.
just see that?
Yeah. What? For everyone, so everyone knows, right? So
You're like a magnet, though.
this is well, to be honest with you, so I've only spent a few nights here, less than 2 weeks, worth of nights here. Um, the first night, I now we're going on a completely different rabbit hole, but the first night I was asleep, and I was here
Kathy has a
completely
new
alone. I have the
house,
dog.
just so you know.
I have a new house, right? I have a new house, and
Yes.
I have a new house. And the first thing that I discovered the first weekend I was up here was a graveyard in the woods behind here, which
Yeah, of course.
a lot of people, yeah, I was just like,
You're
yes,
the perfect person to have that.
Well, I just thought to myself, like, if you're looking for evidence that you made the right decision, you know what I
That was your
mean?
sign.
That was my sign. Um, the house is about 75, 80 years
Not
old.
that old,
Not terribly
but
old.
the
It's on
property
a
probably
very
is.
old property. Yeah, it's on a very old family property. The gravestones are from the early 1800s. So, and it was a multiple family. It was two or three families, and they were French Catholics, which would have been very strange for up here.
Okay.
I'm in Cape Cod. So very exciting stuff happening in Cape Cod. But
I'll bet.
the first night, again, I'm not a person that gets
I am.
afraid of. Yeah, but I'm not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I.
No, like, weird sensations in a new house when I'm by myself, that would be
Oh,
a lot. Yeah.
but the idea of like hauntings or ghosts or something like that doesn't really bother me because my other place is a haunted museum. So but I was in the house. It was the first night I was staying in the house. The dogs weren't with me. I didn't have any guests over or anything like that. So I was and I'm used to big rambling houses, and I've been living in a very small space for the past year. And so this is not a big rambling house. It's a lovely house. It's great. But it's not this big rambling house. It's a Cape Cod. And so I go to bed, and well, at first I fell asleep on the couch. It was very unusual. I fell asleep on the couch, and I kept feeling like something was kind of walking around, or just moving and everything. And I was like, you know what? Get into bed. Stop. Don't fall asleep on the couch. Get into the bed. So I got into bed, and the bed is in a terrible feng shui situation,
Okay.
right? So,
Is it, like,
so,
facing the
so
door or something?
oh yeah, it's not only facing the door, it's facing 3 doors, right? So there's the door to the bedroom, which faces the bathroom, and then the guest room. So it's like, so immediately I'm like, I'm gonna have to change that at some point. I'm
You
gonna
have
have
to
to change
seal
that,
2 of the
right? But
doors up.
well, I was just like, I'm just, and there's a door in the room to the outside. So it I'm like, I could have picked another room, but I was lazy. So I lay down in bed, and about maybe 2 or 3 hours into being asleep, and I'm not a light sleeper, but I'm not a great sleeper either. Um, I woke up because I 100% thought someone had walked into the room. Like I had this sense that someone was walking past the door, and then I thought you're just thinking about it because the door is there. And then I woke and I had this 100% sense that somebody had walked into the door.
I believe you.
So yeah, but I'm not saying the place is haunted. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying it was a weird, first. So I bring the dogs up with me. And we were here maybe the night before last, the first night we were up here. And Lincoln, my dog Lincoln, president of the dogs, um, duly elected president of the dogs. Um, 3:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, just starts randomly barking at nothing. At nothing. Just standing at the doorway to the bedroom, looking out at it, not going to the door. Lincoln's not a chicken, not going to the door, just standing next to the bed, barking at the door. And Finn, who is literally like Lincoln's little brother, and that's it. Has no political aspirations, doesn't have any intention on becoming president. Um, he just looked up and looked at the door. They not aggressively, just was kind of like, that's interesting. And just the two of them just, so I got up and I didn't look out the door. I just closed it. So I was like, whatever, just like, I'm not going to investigate this. I'm just going to stop the barking. And I closed it. So yeah, I did just strange things. So the idea that something flew past up here, I don't know, I don't feel, uncomfortable in the house. I definitely feel very comfortable in the house, but I also don't feel alone in the house. Like
Okay.
how it feels welcoming.
Oh,
And
good.
and um so the reason why I say that is because there's the absence of that too that you can generally feel. And a lot of times it doesn't feel anything.
Yeah.
So you don't feel bad, you don't feel unwelcome, you just don't feel anything. But this actively feels like like there's a welcoming here. So the idea that something just flew past, I'm not surprised. Now I have to investigate my house, but
Don't
that's
I actually say I think you should not investigate the house only because you
that's a
don't wanna pull anything else in.
no, and you don't want to know. I always recommend that to people. Don't investigate your own house. It's fine. You can investigate somebody else's, but don't
I
investigate your
wouldn't
own house.
investigate somebody else's just to not do them do something
Well,
where they're like, okay.
unless they're having an issue. My favorite investigations are private homes.
Okay.
Absolutely, my favorite investigations are private homes because you get really cool, interesting, kind of like gritty stuff.
So I have my little tidbits, but I'm wondering if we should go to the place you recently kind of casually investigated
Yeah.
with your BFF Adam, otherwise known as Adam Berry. But so, as some of our fans will know, you and Adam opened something in Provincetown,
Well,
Massachusetts.
we started doing walking tours last year, but this year we're in the process of building out a retail event space with a paranormal museum. So it's going to be it's going to be similar to the paranormal museum in Asbury Park, but I think it's going to be a little bit more of a rotating curation.
Okay,
Um, and we'll definitely be doing events and things there. It's right on Commercial Street, and it's in a historic building. So
Kathy, I just saw
we
something again.
again, I thought I saw something too.
Okay, another orb, this time above Kathy's head, moving from right to left across the screen. What you'll notice, this one is kind of smaller and meandering. It actually dips down towards Kathy's head before rising and exiting to the left of the screen. Is it paranormal? We don't know. Let us know what you think.
It's right on Commercial Street, and it's in a historic building. So I thought I saw something too.
Yeah, and it was
Um,
meandering. Like what I saw was at the top of the frame that you're in, so closer to the ceiling, and it looked like it kind of moved like that, but it was small. It looked like the size of
well,
like a silver dollar. No, maybe
I don't
smaller.
have any. I don't have any heat on right now, so there's nothing to
No,
cause
I
airflow.
believe you. I
But
mean, it wouldn't make sense for that to do what it did. So
right,
I'm noting for myself, we're 20 minutes into the recording, so I'll go back a little and take a look.
yeah, yeah.
You're
Um,
the only person I could say that to, because if there's anybody else, oh, I have a terrifying story for you about staying at somebody else's house. I've never told them.
oh, you didn't tell them?
I didn't tell them. They won't watch this episode, and if they do, then they should
You're gonna have
probably.
to use. You're gonna have to use. You're gonna have to use secret names
I
or something
will.
like that. Code,
Yeah.
code.
I mean, but finishing your story about the Provincetown
So
Paranormal,
the
you know,
it's actually two locations on Commercial Street. We took down a wall between them, but
wow.
it's a historic house. So the house has been there for years. It was the home and office of the town doctor, and there was I think he operated for 50 years. And he was a general practitioner, but he was a general practitioner in a small, fishing village kind of town. I'm not talking about like in the 1700s. I'm talking about from like 1920 to like 1970.
Some of these people did like
So he's,
surgeries and things that now we
yeah, and
wouldn't want them to do.
I would imagine, well, I definitely think that definitely did happen because we're also, even now, you know, I'm an hour away from a hospital. So if something were to happen and you need an ambulance, you're an hour away. There are EMTs and there are smaller, like treatment centers, like if you get a
Like
cold or something like that.
urgent care
But
and yeah.
yeah, and even that closes at 6. But if something, you would have to be airlifted, or if you need an ambulance, the ambulance is going to come from an EMT, but it's going to take you an hour away.
Oh my
So
God.
having a doctor like that, I would imagine he saw every type of issue, especially going into like the 1970s. And I would imagine that people lost their life. I mean, I would imagine that happened there. There was a note too, though, that said that he probably practiced a little bit longer than he should have, but that if you called him, he came. Like,
Okay.
he was dedicated to his community. I think he was old. I think he was very old when he stopped practicing, and his mother and his children were raised. He raised his children there, so he practiced in this building, and the building was old. So the building's like an old captain's house. It's probably been there since to 1780s or 1790s or whatnot. So we decided that we'd heard some stories about the place, and we're like, we're bringing in this stuff. Let's go in and see what's what. So yesterday we went in to do kind of we were like, we're going to introduce ourselves to the
Just you and
ghosts,
Adam.
and just the two of us, but also out of respect,
Okay.
right? So if there is something here, let's find out who it is, and let's introduce ourselves and let's see what's what. So we went in, not a full investigation, very much a conversation. And one of the things, we had done an investigation in Wisconsin a couple of years ago, and it was at this church. It had never been investigated before, but there was lots of phenomena that people talked about happening. And we investigated there 2 nights in a row for like 6 hours, which is a really long time to
Ugh.
investigate. But what we noticed was the first night we got almost nothing. It was like pulling teeth. It was just, which, my dentist friends actually tell me pulling teeth is not that hard, so I'm going to come up with something else.
It
But
sounds
um,
hard and awful.
I don't think it is. I just think you need the right leverage and whatever. So, but the first night we got nothing. We didn't get nothing, but we didn't get a lot. And what we realized was no one had ever investigated in the place before. So we're bringing in all this equipment. We're trying to get this spirit to communicate with us, and it probably doesn't know how. It probably doesn't know how to manipulate these things. So the second night, we spent about an hour before everybody got there, and we talked, and we did like a training session for the spirit, and we had one of the most amazing investigations we'd ever had. I mean, it really was wild. So we went in yesterday and we decided, it's a small space. We're just going to kind of do some conversational stuff. And immediately we noticed that we had EMF detectors that were just going off randomly. So we kind of looked at everything and we realized there was no environmental reason for the EMF detectors to go off. So we decided to say, you know what, we don't need proof that you're here. We're going to assume you're here. We're going to start a conversation. So we did that, and we realized quickly that something was trying to do what we were asking, but it was kind of like a kid that's trying to learn to walk, there was a certain amount of floundering around,
Okay.
so it was like, so we realized that it was something that was going to take a little, but towards the end we were using a very specific voice recorder that's kind of famous in the community for really picking up a ton of EVP. And we were getting sounds, and we were getting what sounded like, language, and it sounded like someone was really trying to enunciate. It just wasn't loud enough. And we had put a bell out, like a hotel bell, like
Oh,
ding, like
okay.
if you're asking for something. So we'd put that in one of the areas of away from us. And when you do an investigation, you try to put things in different places in the area so that you can ask questions and move things around, so it's not everything is centrally located to you, and you could say, hey, great, thank you so much for making this light up, can you now go to the other side of the room and do that? And it's just more convincing, and it seems it's more interactive. So we had been doing this for about an hour, and you don't want to tax either the investigators or whatever or whomever you're communicating with. You're talking to a human being. After about an hour,
Sorry. Zelda's right next to me, and I'm watching because I don't want her to go after my cats, and she just shook her head suddenly,
like,
and made that
I agree.
that dog shaking noise, and I was like, "Ah."
Yeah.
So
So we've been doing it for about 45 minutes or an hour, and we realized, we're probably overstaying our welcome at this point, and maybe we're taxing whomever we're speaking to, and we don't know who we're speaking to. We have an idea, but we don't know. So we get to it, and this was the clip that I sent you, because I just sent you a little clip, right? So essentially, we're sitting in the dark, and the EMF detectors are going off and stuff like that. And then we're listening to one of the audio recordings. And even on the recording I sent you, you can hear a response to our question that sounds like a sentence, right? And then I say, it sounds like a sentence, and it sounds like they're really trying. And then from the other room, and where no one else is in this place, you just hear ding, like somebody hit
oh my
the
god.
bell. And, you know, I react to it excitedly, and Adam's kind of like, yeah, that's cool. But I react to it
I'd be
excitedly.
excited.
Be- I will,
Yeah,
it's
why not?
exciting. But it was exciting because essentially it was confirmation that yes, I am trying.
Yeah.
Yes, I am trying. And so while I wouldn't consider that an investigation, I would consider that more of a conversation. Um I did send it to you because it's like, this is what I did today. Like I went and I was talking to the ghosts, but also because it is interesting, because we're going to be bringing in artifacts that have reputations for having energy associated with them. So we kind of were laying the groundwork to where it's like, hey, listen, um, we're the new, we're the new proprietors here. We're going to be doing this. We want to do this respectfully because we don't want to have any problems, but also we don't want to ruin your day. So this is what's going to be coming in here, and I would say, we got a ton of responses. It just very much sounded like somebody not quite knowing how to, Adam was like, we're gonna have to do this a couple more times before the build out happens. Because we really do want to know who we should be talking to, or how we should be addressing, because there's no doubt in my mind that people are going to have experiences in this place. And so it would be nice to be able to say, hey, don't worry about that. Don't get upset about that. This is who that is. And have a modicum of confidence in who we're saying we're communicating with. But I thought you would like that. I thought you would like the
No,
ding.
I think the ding is awesome. I can't fully take off my kind of daytime hat. And as you're talking, I'm thinking whatever, kind of mild-mannered Cape Cod spirit is hanging out there might be like, "Oh, okay, I'll be chatting with you," but then you bring in some super creepy artifacts with their energies, and I wonder if they're gonna be like, "Seriously, this isn't what I was expecting," or, like,
I would say that the changes in Provincetown since in their lifetime, this would be probably not as shocking as some of the other things that they've had in
no,
that
but what
show.
about, like, stuff with, like, kind of evil energy?
Yeah, but I mean, see, I don't
I
think
wonder
that
if
we have evil stuff.
what
I mean, like
what
I don't. I think there are things that people react to negatively, but even
eh,
the stuff that I have, like there's one or two things that I would be like, yeah, there might be something negative associated with that. There's nothing
eh,
that I have that I just don't, I mean, and I know you do,
but what about
but
the thing that was, like, trying to come up from the basement when you were there by yourself one night?
well, that's the one or two things,
I mean,
right?
that
That's
was, like, one of the
that's
most
one of the
awful
two things.
stories I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, and that's a jerk. That thing is a total jerk.
But you
And it's been
left
very quiet
you
since
It's the only
I
thing that
left.
ever made you
Yeah,
run
ever,
out
ever.
of the
Not only did I
museum.
leave, well, I'm going to say this: I didn't run because I wasn't capable of running at the time, but I did walk 3 city blocks
In bitter cold.
instead of going straight out the back. And so I would say that yes, I think that that's kind of an unpleasant
Oh,
thing.
ugh,
And I don't think that there's really any positive uh hauntings of dolls. I don't think that there's any really positive way.
yeah.
But that being said, I don't think that they're evil or demonic. They're more like jerks. But no, that's the other reason why we wanted to communicate with
By the
whomever's
way,
in there.
brace yourself.
Yeah. By the way, if you think this stuff's bad,
If you hate
by the
construction,
way,
wait till the
yeah,
demonic
yeah.
dolls
It's
come.
like, by the way, if the drag queens and strippers bothered you, this
That
is
was the
this
other
is
night.
we're going down a different avenue now. Um, but but here's the thing: if we
I'm
start a
nervous laughing,
conversation,
it's not just funny.
but I mean, but we can start that conversation too. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, so if we can have the conversation, because I don't, I don't. There are artifacts I have that I don't put out. Right, there definitely are, and I think not being out um weakens their energy.
No
Right, so
idea.
they're not as impactful. Right, and that's just how I feel. And having been around them for 30 years, if I put this thing away and I'm not feeding it
Okay.
people's attention, and I think it gets quiet. I'm not saying I think it goes away entirely, but it just doesn't seem to bother me, or doesn't seem to bother anyone else. Um, but we have hundreds of artifacts and hundreds of stories. And so if we put something in there, and our resident spirit is just like, I hate this thing, um
Are you gonna take it out?
we could take it out. You know what I mean? Yeah, of course. Especially, like especially if we have a conversation where we can learn that. Like I did have an art and I did have an artifact at the museum in Asbury Park that I think the other energies were like, nope, sick of your shit and didn't want it. And I ended up, it's been in the isolation room ever since
I was gonna say
because
who you
it
give
just
it
kept
to.
falling.
Yeah.
It just kept falling. And um, you know, that's the conversation. So it's like if you guys don't want this thing here, okay, we're gonna get rid of it. But I think both Adam and I of skepticism. Are you hearing that?
I You literally just cut out and I heard a weird electronic like blip.
Yeah, me too. That's weird. Hold on one second. You know what's so really strange too is my computer just completely drained.
Ah.
That's crazy.
Well, it's also I just got this awful cold flash up my back. And again, I realize that people listening could be like, "Ooh, that's creepy," or they could be like, "Oh, that sounds like BS. You guys are just talking yourself into being freaked out." And I get it. And by the way, my disclaimer is not that everything paranormal bothers me. Far from it. I mean, like I had, without going into detail, I did energy work on two people yesterday, distance, and I feel quite confident that this happens sometimes. I don't do energy work that often, but that, you know, some of their loved ones came through and I just give the
Right.
information. It's not for me, but that's actually an incredibly gratifying feeling. And
Oh, I agree.
that's to me though different from scary haunted doll. you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
like, well, what can you do?
I mean, it's what I do. It is what I do.
So I'm wondering, Kathy, like I had some little like kind of semi-randomy tidbits, and I wonder if we should save them for another time or if we should see what
I'm
sticks.
gonna say this. I'm a little bit afraid that my everything's gonna die on this because my battery is just drained.
Okay,
And I'm plugged in, right? So,
that's
and
really
it's
weird.
still just, well, who knows? I don't listen. I don't want to be like, oh, everything is paranormal,
No, some
but
could just be
but
that
it is
outlet.
it is it is. Well, I don't know. It says it's charging, and then it just dropped. It just dropped. Like I don't. Did you hear that again?
No, but you cut out briefly, so you heard something weird.
Yeah, not weird. Yeah, I think now you've got me thinking my house is haunted.
So listen, remember terminology is important. Haunted versus you have company. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you
Yes. Exactly.
maybe you have
Visitors. I
company.
have visitors.
You visit or no
It's all
residents.
semantics.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But you're also a definite attractor, just FYI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can or you could see if you can get better kind of sound quality on the clip you sent me. And if so, I will insert it into our video or post it separately. And
I don't really want to manipulate the video. So if I
I mean,
can,
just to like
I'll raise
make it
the
like
volume.
louder
But
in that
the
section so
only
we can
thing,
hear
the
it.
only thing in it that's I'm not really worried about the EVP because you're not going to be able to discern the EVP. To me, what's really interesting about that clip is the bell
No, I mean
because
it's awesome.
something had to hit that bell,
Okay.
which is an enormous amount of energy to actually manipulate a material object. We're not talking about, walking in front of something and having a motion detector. We're not talking about something that's auditory. We're literally talking about something that had to apply enough pressure
To ring a bell,
to ring that
an
bell,
old school bell.
which to me was very, very interesting. Very like a hotel bell. So it was like ding. And I think in the clip you can actually hear how surprised I am by that.
I
I,
think I
I
think
was
so.
very surprised. I was like, was that the bell? And the bell was probably 15 feet away from us.
I love it. Yeah, that doesn't freak me out. That intrigues me.
Well, it's clearly something trying to communicate with us, not something that we're kind of forcing to communicate. It's something that's taking the opportunity to say, "Oh, great, we could have this conversation."
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, we have an idea of who it is. There's also a point where, and it's not on the clip that I sent you, but where we're like, it, this person may not speak English as their
Okay.
primary language. So we were looking at that as well. And Provincetown has a large Portuguese
Yeah.
population and had a large Portuguese population.
Find
And
somebody who can,
yeah,
who speaks
neither of us
Portuguese.
spoke Portuguese, so we were unable to cross that bridge. But I don't know. It was interesting. It was interesting because we didn't go in with the presumption that the place was haunted, but we were like, let's go in as if we do believe that and start this conversation. And the funny thing was that we got a conversation, you know, which is why when you come up here, we'll do this, at that time as well, because obviously if the first day we got a lot of we got a lot of responses in a lot of different ways through a lot of different equipment. I think it would be really interesting, especially since you are sensitive. I think it would be really interesting to see what you came up with.
I want the least spooky room, and B, I kind of want one of
I
your
don't mean
dogs
here
to
in the
stay
house. I mean in
with
the
me.
I mean in the
No,
business.
but I'm thinking about, like, when I'm sleeping is when I want no ghostly activity. I like an abundance when I'm awake is great, but
Yeah, I don't think there's anything up here because I don't think this was original. I don't think the bedrooms up here were original. I
Kathy,
think
I
that
love
I think they
that
knocked out the.
because the ghost couldn't just, like, shoot upstairs.
No, but I mean, generally
I
speaking,
saw 2 things move past your head tonight.
yeah, but that's me. That's me. That's
That's
not in
your,
the bedrooms.
poltergeist energy.
That's not in the bedrooms. Yeah, that's my ghost magnet.
Oh my
You know.
god. Well, Kath, I don't wanna hold you up if your battery is running down for no paranormal reason at all,
Yeah.
but just, because sometimes that happens when it's plugged in.
Mm.
But, yeah, it was great catching up. I can't wait to come check out, the new space and your new house and catch up further, but we will catch up again, and I will have more little tidbits from my research to share with you then,
Yeah, we kind of went off on a tangent.
as we
But I
do.
would love to. Yeah, as we do. But that's a fascinating subject, and
Oh,
it is, it is something that's a little bit more, um, or a little bit less open to interpretation because there is a lot of data and there is a lot of evidence. Not, not even just evidence. There's a lot of scholarship. There's a lot of people who have been studying this.
telepathy and
So
psi and
yeah,
okay. We brought it
yeah,
full circle.
yeah. I knew you were gonna say that.
For
Just kidding.
anybody who's been, having a little trouble following us. But,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, so great to see you and so great to virtually be with all of you. And thanks for hanging out with us as we catch up and have our little paranormal, smorgasbord tonight. Any final words, Kath?
I'm trying to think of a question that I can pose to everybody and have them answer it like a paranormal question. But you know what? I guess I'll prepare this and I'll have something. I was thinking we should do some kind of paranormal trivia to get people involved, and and because I always love that stuff too. But what I would love is I would love for you guys to get into the comments on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this. Go to our Facebook page and let us know what you're thinking.
Instagram,
Yeah, Instagram, any place.
anyway,
But I'd really like to hear the subjects that you're interested in, because
absolutely.
we did get a couple of Utah. Shout out to Utah.
Yeah.
Sent us a picture that I loved because it's a really good example of an image that someone might think was paranormal in nature, and it wasn't. And it also is a great image of me in my Adidas sneakers in Salem. um but if you have a subject that you're interested in, that we haven't covered, or even if you just have kind of stories that you want to
Questions,
talk about, yeah, about what
stories.
we have talked about, please get in the comments and let's. And if you disagree with us, if you think if you think we're dopey, or you think that we're
No, oh, I don't
heading
wanna
down
hear
the
about
wrong
that.
direction, well, no, that's okay.
People yeah, I mean, well, certain things
You know,
but
g-
if you
get in there and
disagree, great. let us
Yeah,
know.
and if it, just get into the comments, and share, like, follow, and
Tell a
review us
friend.
if you can. Yeah, if you can review us, that would be terrific, because that really does help us keep doing this. And I don't know if you heard, but I just bought a house, so I need you to start reviewing us. And I hope I see you guys. And we're also going to be talking about different events that we're going to be doing. So if you're around, May 3rd in Asbury Park, come and visit us at the Pod Barons at the Jersey Devil Fable Festival on Madison Avenue in Asbury Park.
Absolutely. And we can put some links as we have them in the show notes.
Yes.
But
Yes.
well, Kath, it was great to see you. Everyone,
It was
it
good
was
to see
great to
you.
virtually kind of psychically see you. And we'll see you next time. But until then, stay curious.
Keep exploring.
Bye for now.
I know that
Bye,
the
guys.
paranormal is real. Listen.
You've just listened to the Curious Explorers podcast with the Kathy Kelly and Traci Stein. If you enjoyed the episode, remember to like, share, follow, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. And of course, until next time, stay curious.